Today, we're traveling to the small, unassuming country of South Korea, also known as the Republic of Korea and home to over 49 million people. Before I dive into my presentation, here's a quick overview of modern-day culture in South Korea. South Korea is located in the southern half of the Korean peninsula, bordering North Korea to its north. Many Westerners have a very hard time distinguishing between different Asian languages and characters. Which one do you think is Korean? If you guessed that Korean is the fourth option, you were correct. 안녕하세요. South Korea has a relatively temperate climate. As a New Yorker, I compare it to the likes of the climate in New York. We also tend to have cold, relatively dry winters and hot, humid summers. And we're known for having 4 seasons, and South Korea is very similar. But while New York and the rest of the United States East Coast is subject to hurricanes, the southern coast of South Korea is subject to late summer typhoons that bring strong winds and heavy rains. 대한민국! The South Korean government is a republic. And just like America, they're divided into 3 branches: the executive, judicial, and legislative. The State Council, which is the highest executive body, is composed of the president, the prime minister, the heads of executive ministries, and ministers without portfolio. A careful system of checks and balances is in place in South Korea. The South Korean currency is the won. And while this may look like big money to Westerners, $1 is about 1,130 South Korean won. Continuing to speak on the economy in South Korea, the GDP trend is currently increasing, while the real GDP growth is also increasing. But wealth distribution in the population is a current problem. The top 10%, as of right now, receives 46% of the country's total wealth. That's big money. Meanwhile, the bottom 50% is receiving only 9.5% of the country's wealth. Under former President Park Geun-hye, there was hardly any aid provided to the economy, as she did little to attack institutional sources of widening inequality like tax policies, the dualistic labor market, or welfare policies. Statistics under her presidency indicated that as much as 73% of Seoul residents identified themselves as belonging to the lower middle class or lower class. But moving on from economy, we go to foreign affairs. South Korea's number 1 enemy is North Korea. The border between North Korea and South Korea is known as the Korean Demilitarized Zone. And while this zone may seem very dangerous to outsiders, it currently serves as a major tourist attraction in South Korea. Now, it's hard to specify North Korea as one of South Korea's top enemies, because in the minds of most of the South Korean citizens, Korea remains a single nation that cannot be divided. A lot of Koreans, especially those in their late 40s to mid-50s, grew up learning that reunification was a sacred goal. It was the way things were just supposed to be. And many want reunification, some out of pure nationalism, and others just for a desire to have peace, especially as South Korea requires all of its male citizens to serve in the military for 2 years. In regards to South Korea's citizens, recent statistics show that the labor force is at 63.3%, while the most recent unemployment rate is 3.8%. Unfortunately, the inflation rate is at an all-time high at 2.6%. The trend for the most part is at an increase, especially since June of 2017. South Korea has a very great infrastructure and transportation system. Transportation in South Korea is provided by an extensive network of railways, highways, bus routes, ferry services, and air routes that crisscross the country. All cities have intercity and intracity bus systems. Major cities also have express bus terminals. KORail in the middle provides frequent train service to all major South Korean cities. When my sister visited South Korea, she even claimed that KORail had some of the cleanest trains she's ever seen. Returning to international affairs, South Korea is very involved in international trading. The following export product groups represent the highest dollar value in South Korean global shipments during 2016. South Korea's main export is electrical machinery and equipment. This accounts for $134.3 billion and 27.1% of total exports. South Korea also exports ships, cars, computers, and other electronic items. In terms of imports, South Korea tends to import mineral fuels, including oil. This accounts for $81.7 billion in US dollars, which is 20.1% of total exports. South Korea actually has one of the strongest economies in Eastern Asia. Most of its wealth comes from manufacturing and service industries, such as banking. Now, you may be asking yourself, why Korea? Well, the Korean film industry itself is actually very successful. A total of 338 local titles opened in 2016 to dominate the market, finishing with a share of 53.7% compared with 52% in 2015. The clip below is actually a trailer from the 2016 Korean hit Train to Busan, which was a zombie movie that took over not just Korea, but the whole world. It beat Now You See Me 2, which moved it down to the number 2 spot from its number 1 spot, reached more than 74.7% of the market share, became the fastest movie ever in South Korea to cross the 5 million admissions mark, and eventually became not only the biggest film of 2016 in Korea, but also one of the highest grossing movies of all time. In addition to successful movies, the South Korean entertainment industry has also created very successful TV dramas. But of course, to create a successful and beautiful film, you need a beautiful setting. And South Korea has plenty of those. Just watch. As you can see, not only is South Korea beautiful, but it has so many diverse landscapes and scenery that you could cut traveling expenses by just staying in South Korea. There would be no need to travel from one country to another trying to get urban city shots or coastal plain shots or ocean shots. South Korea literally has everything. But everything comes out different on film, doesn't it? So here I have examples of music videos from K-pop that show how beautifully that these Korean landscapes come out on film. locations featured in these music videos are very common and popular places for K-pop acts to film music videos and for movies to take place. And these are music videos with budgets much smaller than films. Imagine how beautiful a film could come out in South Korea if music videos like these come out amazing. Based on my research and absolute love for South Korea, I don't see why anyone wouldn't want to film a movie in the country. There are so many different places to see and such a diverse culture that it would make for a great movie, and I recommend filming in South Korea to any director. Thank you, 감사합니다, and see you in Korea.